wanted to get you on, though, to get your reaction to this ruling. Have talked to lots of people this week about it, but wanted to get your reaction as a high-ranking member of the House of Representatives. And, of course, we were a little surprised first, I guess, Trey, that the news was released on Friday. That's a little unusual for the Supreme Court as opposed to Thursday. Isn't that right?
That is correct. It is. It has happened before, so it's not totally unprecedented, but it is unusual. Normally, the Supreme Court, for those who don't keep up with such things, normally they hand down decisions on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Our Court of Appeals hands down decisions on Tuesdays, and the Supreme Court hands down decisions on Thursdays. But they have, on occasion, in the past, when there is a matter of individual significance, they have handed it down on other days, and it's not the first time they have handed down a case that they expect to receive a lot of attention statewide late on a Friday afternoon.
Well, I tell you what, it got the hornet's nest stirring in a hurry for sure.
Didn't it, though?
And it's just kind of curious, isn't it? To me, it is, at least. And I'm not suggesting anything nefarious here, but Friday, get this out there. I know these folks, those justices, they've been working hard, and on this matter, it's complicated, as we've discussed, and they understand the meaning and how controversial it is, and so get it out there on a Friday and maybe take a little rest on the weekend as much as you can. But nonetheless, so I guess I'll just ask you straight up, Trey, do you think they got it right, the Supreme Court?
So, yeah, Gerard, I'll tell you, I respect the court's decision. I respect both sides, the majority as well as the dissent. But at the end of the day, I have to say that I believe they got it correct. And it was a 6-3 decision. We have a Supreme Court. And I think this is very, very important. We have a Supreme Court who we want, or certainly we should want, to rule on the law as it exists. The Supreme Court is there to call balls and strikes, and you really, no matter how popular any particular issue is to you personally or to you individually, you don't want a court who's going to make a ruling based on popularity. You want a court who's going to rule according to the law. And in this particular situation, the law, meaning the part of our state constitution that was amended in 1992 to add this initiative mechanism, simply, the black letter of the law simply did not work with our current congressional framework.
Right.
And that's the result that the court reached.
Well, I will say that of the attorneys I've had on, I think I've had 4 on this week and have enjoyed all those interviews, but I think that's consistent with their views as well. And I know we had Aaron Rice from the Mississippi Justice Institute on Monday, and he talked about the distinction between intent, I guess, and the strict contextual interpretation of the words in the law. And so he didn't quarrel with it either in that respect. And he, as you indicated, Representative Lamar, he sort of understood the support and the reasoning behind all the justices' vote, if you will. So in those who voted to strike it down and those who dissented with that vote. So he did a good job of that.
Right.
So that sounds consistent. All right, so the big question is, you're a pretty high-ranking guy there in the House of Representatives. What's going to happen? Where do we go from here? Have you attempted to handicap what the governor's going to do? Have you been in touch with the governor's office, the speaker? And then what would you like to see happen, sir?
Well, certainly I don't pretend to try to handicap what our governor may do. I have not been in touch with his office, but I have spoken with others who have, and I do know he is considering a special session. I've had meetings this week with our team in the House and Speaker Gunn, and I know that Speaker Gunn called for a special session to restore the rights of the citizens to have an initiative process in this state. I believe that's an important right for the citizens. So we'll see. I also see where Lieutenant Governor Postman said we don't need to have a knee-jerk reaction here, and I can't say I disagree with that either. We have to remember, Gerard, there's really two different issues here. There's those that are passionate about the marijuana program and the that 65 language that was there, and those that had spent a lot of time working on it. And then the second issue is the initiative process itself. So the court's ruling didn't just stop the medical marijuana plan and program from becoming viable. It shut down the entire initiative process. So the ruling was less about marijuana and more about just the black letter of the law and really our constitutional law as it relates to this initiative process that was put into our Constitution back in 1992. So those are two different issues. I don't know in the past, most of the times in the more recent past, before a special session is called to spend taxpayer monies, there has been at least a general agreement amongst the parties, meaning the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. And I'm not sure we're there yet, so it may be a little premature at this point in time for a special session. Okay.
Well, and I know what I've seen within, I guess, a few hours as in 48, 72 hours after the decision, it appears that the lieutenant governor is in favor of a special session to address the medical marijuana program, and the speaker, on the other hand, is in favor of one, at least what he said publicly, in favor of a special session to address the ballot initiative problem. So there doesn't seem to be congruence between the chamber leaders there on how to proceed. And I'm quite sure the governor he's considering all of that in his decision making, and we've talked about that extensively here on the program. That to fix the ballot initiative problem, if you will, we've got to do that by going back to the ballot in a statewide election, and we don't have one until 2022. And so if we wanted to correct it prior to that, we'd have to hold a special election, and I'm pretty sure that only the legislature can authorize that. Is that true?
That's true. That is. So there's kind of a couple different things come to mind when you're talking. There's also a third thing that we could talk about in the special session, and that's our income tax reform plan. And I'd love to see that happen because I believe the spotlight would be bright, and we could bring some real relief to the people and move our state forward. With a broad light on what we're doing there.
Gotcha.
And that could be combined with a medical marijuana plan. It could help pay for some of the cuts that we're looking at. So all those things could be addressed together if the governor so chooses to call a special session if he wants to.
We got a break right here, Trey. You want to hang on?
Yeah.
All right. We got Representative Trey Lamar as our guest. Representative Trey Lamar is our guest on the program. So, Representative Lamar, you were just talking about how you would be in favor of discussing and considering legislation to reform the income taxes situation here in the state of Mississippi, which I know was considered through a House bill this past session, did not get traction in the Senate, but I know the Speaker he's made it very clear he considers this the number one issue for the state of Mississippi.
Well, certainly I agree with him in that respect, and I, along with other House members and leaders in the hall, are pushing it hard. I know Speaker Pro Tem White, as well as others, are talking it up all across the state. I was with a group here in Tate County this morning, a group of retirees who wanted to know more about the plan, and we spent a while talking about it and how it could help them as well as help their children and grandchildren and make Mississippi more prosperous for our future generations. And anyway, so many good positives. I just believe there would be an opportunity there to accomplish that, along with potentially a reinstating a medical marijuana plan if the governor so chose to go that route.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so are you guys working with the Senate? Did they not form, I guess, some sort of committee perhaps or group? Perhaps the lieutenant governor, as I recall, did so to really do a deep dive on the policy and analyze it and then come report on that to the Senate. Didn't that happen, something to that extent?
Well, that's going to happen. And so, yeah, I've had several meetings with, actually just this week, had multiple meetings with the lieutenant governor's office as well as Senator Josh Harkins, who is a good friend of mine, and we work very well together. And Josh Harkins is taking this matter very seriously, and we are looking at scheduling what's most likely going to be some joint hearings sometime later this summer, where we can discuss the issues and give everybody a chance to answer questions that they may have, and have some more experts in. We've already had multiple experts weigh in on it, but certainly there are some senators who have some questions, and we welcome those questions because we feel like the proof is going to be provide that this is the direction that Mississippi needs to go. I mean, we've already got a very detailed study performed by uninterested economics professors at Ole Miss who volunteered to do a study on it that said this would add $370 million to our state's GDP because it's a much more efficient tax system.
Yeah.
So I invited anybody to take that Ole Miss professor's report and send it to whoever you want to send it to. Send it all over the country if you want to, and I invite criticism of it. And because if there's ways to criticize where it's not correct, then I want to know about it. But if it is correct, which I submit to you, I believe it is. If it is correct, then there's no excuse for us not moving forward with the plan.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think you know where I stand on that, Trey. I have done my best to try to inform our listeners about the bill and the policy, and actually built some models to try to help folks, and had
right.
several folks send their personal information, which I ran through the model, and
Great.
And always resulted in a positive outcome.
Cool.
The only caveat. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say you need to share that with me. I could use that in some of my talks with people. So I need some. I need to see your models, man. That would be a good thing.
I've talked to Trey Dillinger, the Speaker's chief of staff, and the Speaker about it. In fact, when I had him on the air, I showed him, some of that. But it's pretty straightforward, really. It just breaks down what the typical household spends their money on, and that wasn't anything that I made up. That was gleaned from some research on that. I believe actually Trey did the same. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the major objections, as you recall, Trey, was from the farming community because they would incur a higher sales tax rate. They were concerned about that. I know manufactured housing is another one, and auto dealers and so forth. And were there not some adjustments made after, I guess, hearing some of the concerns about that? So, because we actually reduced the exemption out of the gate to accommodate that, right?
That's exactly right. And so everyone in the agricultural community, as well as in the manufacturing community, were largely removed from the bill, and so there is no more adverse effects on an increased sales tax on tractors and implements and other inputs into manufacturing, because we realize, you don't undertake something this major and have it perfect on the first go-round.
Sure.
It takes a little bit of massaging as it goes through the process. That's just normal. But we realize that our farmers out there, they don't have the ability to pass on that cost. They don't set the commodity prices.
Right.
So when they go buy a $750,000 cotton picker, they can't pass that increased sales tax cost on to whoever's buying that cotton on the backside. And so there's just some examples like that needed to be tweaked, and certainly those folks were that was taken into account. And in the most recent version of the bill that passed the House, they were removed from the bill. So there should be no more concerns whatsoever from the agriculture community. And I would say to you, those special business interests that do have an increased sales tax, those folks can pass it on to the end user.
Right.
And in the plan, the end user has more disposable income to buy stuff with.
Yeah, they do, and that's what my model's revealed, even with the increase on sales tax. I think what often is overlooked is a lot of what we spend our money on in the typical household is not subject to sales tax.
Correct.
Rent, mortgage, insurance, as an example, energy. Gas, right, fuel. So
medication.
Right, drugs, right. So I built that into the model and, basically took, here's your gross income, here's what your net income is after you pay your federal income taxes, and this is what that results in terms of disposable income. This is how you're allocating those funds at essentially your net pay, if you will. This is how that divides out, and therefore this is what the decrease on food, it made some assumptions about that, the increase on everything else that's subject to sales tax, but then incorporated a savings on your Mississippi income tax. It's a net savings. For people who work, it's a net savings. I understand the objection from retired folks. As you know, retirement income is exempt in Mississippi. But they're going to get a decrease on their food and maybe a slight increase on other commodities that they purchase. But I think in general, it's a minimal amount of money.
It is. And let me be clear, because I was speaking with this group of folks this morning. It's not all retirement income that's exempt. It's just PERS retirement income, so those that participate in our public employee retirement system, and Social Security.
Social Security, right. That's right.
401ks are still subject to state income tax, as well as rental income, interest income, those sorts of things.
Right.
So it's not all retirees.
Yeah.
All income for all retirees.
Yep.
But that's the exact reason for people on a fixed income that we cut the grocery tax in half, because people on a fixed income spend a greater percentage of their funds, their disposable money, on groceries, and so they're going to realize the benefit there. And so that's the exact reason that was an important part of the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate that clarification as well, as we've done many times on the air. But, I know the speaker likes to say if you had to pay, let's say, $100 more a year as a retired person in order to save $1,500 is the number he typically refers to, given the out of the gate exemption for your grandchildren. Would you favor that? And, I think across the board, folks say,
sure,
yeah, I'd be for that, to help my grandchildren. So anyhow, right. I hope we can get something done. Do you feel confident we can in the next session? Or even in a special session would be great.
I do feel confident. And, one of my, I don't mind admitting this, one of my personal faults is sometimes I'm too optimistic. So, yeah, I feel confident. I believe we can. I mean, I'm committed to working day and night with our friends in the Senate and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman to convince him why this is the best path forward for the state of Mississippi, and this will actually help grow our economy and will produce more tax money that we can use on things like infrastructure and education and things of that nature. So I believe it strongly, and I feel like we're set up. We've got leadership in the governor's office and in the House of Representatives, and I believe we have the right leadership in the Senate that will get on board as soon as we spend a little more time with them on it.
Sounds good. Trey, good to talk to you as always. We really appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you soon.